Well, hello again, everyone. Welcome to UnAnchored Boston. And as always, our show is brought to you by Cold Springs RV and by the great George Gray at George Gray's Lexington Toyota 409 Mass Ave in Lexington. Speaking of great, we've got the great Dan Shaughnessy. We could go 3 hours today between Tim Wakefield, Russ Francis, injuries to the Patriots, Terry Francona, the Patriots, et cetera, et cetera. But Bob Lobel, you get the intro, so take it away.
Well, it's a fortuitous time that we have Dan on Lynchy because, you'll either find out today if you go online and read his column that came down this morning, which is Tuesday morning that we're taping this. But the column was 50 years of, at least some of the great memories that Dan covered. It was really a show within a show, and we could spend 3 hours talking about it, and we'll spend some time talking about it. But it's fortunate for us we had a chance to read it before we went on. We originally thought, when I talked to Dan last week, Mike, I said, Dan, we're going to talk about Tim Wakefield and spend some time talking about what he meant to Boston and what kind of a guy he was. And then the Russ Francis thing happened. And so that just made it a really tough week. And so we can't ignore that. And then the Patriots, dissolving and all those other things that kind of went on since we talked. But, we did start off, Dan, talking about Tim Wakefield. We said we were going to do that, and I think we should do that.
Absolutely.
This was a shock. These things, damn it, in this day and age, things, it's like a news cycle. Wakefield all of a sudden is dead. It's hard to believe because he was so much alive. So a couple of weeks ago, and at 59, cancer, the whole Schilling story. It's so sad. It's hard to even talk about. But Dan, you've written a couple of very interesting and thoughtful columns on Wakefield and what he meant. And I know it meant a lot to you with your own daughter going through cancer. We can talk a little bit about what this guy meant.
Well, Tim came to us, I think it was 94, 95, and obviously he never left. So really it was a 30-year deal, 3 decades. And
brought here by Dan Duquette, by the way.
Right, brought here by Dan Duquette. And I remember him he had this magical run in Pittsburgh before coming here. It was short-lived, and he kind of lost the feel for the ball, and he was going to be out of baseball. And then he was revived here, and he won another, 180 some odd games for the Red Sox, giving him 200 round total. And just a presence, he was a stand-up guy. He was never a great quote. Tim didn't light it up for you. He was kind of boring in that sense because he was just a reliable guy who you'd like to work with and was a great teammate. And then, of course, attached himself to the Jimmy Fund and every other charity that came his way. It could be, autism or the soldiers, or he was just there. But the Jimmy Fund was particular identification for him. And he was the first Jimmy Fund captain. And what struck me was the swiftness of this, which you alluded to, was just that, a week ago, we had no knowledge that he was even sick.
Right.
And I pulled up that video from August 30th of the telethon with Ness and EEI, which I do every year. And there's Tim. He was the promo for the thing, as he always is. You see it a million times when you're watching Sox games. And then I found the clip of his appearance this year. And it was like 4.5 weeks before he died. And he's totally whole. There's clearly no issue. But what no one knows is he's got a brain cancer. And I was told he had some trouble seeing a little bit subsequent to that. And it all led to discovery of a brain cancer and a very quick surgery. But I talked to one of his agents last Thursday after the whole Schilling inappropriate disclosure. And I didn't think it was that dire where it was touch and go through the weekend. And talked to another guy who, was a neighbor of his, and he spent Friday with him just talking and about what Schilling had done to the family and their privacy. And talking about golf, and it wasn't this huge decline that, and then something obviously happened Sunday morning, so no one was prepared for the first news that Schilling, clumsily put out there, and then certainly we weren't prepared for Sunday morning that they announced that Tim said, I'm sitting right in this chair I'm sitting in, and I see that Celtics story. That was a huge trade the Celtics made, and the Patriot game's starting in a couple hours, and I'm thinking, well, not a slow day. And then my phone rang, and I'm like, and my boss said, I need you. And I'm like, okay, I can write that Celtic thing. That's a big deal. It's a big trade. And he said, no. He said, Tim Wakefield is dead. And and that was, so it's still hard to get your head around it. I'm really pleased for his family, the way he's being remembered, and just all the tributes are pouring in. That's going to be nonstop, and he deserves it. I mean, he's and the guy started more games than anybody in the history of the Red Sox. So pitched more innings than anybody in the history of the Red Sox. It's pretty good in a team that had, Roger Clemens, Pedro, Babe Ruth pitching for him. So, on the field, a great, and, we all know the stories, how he stepped up and filled in when they needed him and was a manager's dream in that sense. And just was here a long, long time. And then loved it here so much. He stayed here, raised his family here, and had this, this bond with the Jimmy Fund. In that audio of his appearance, I still have stuff to bring out from it. He tells the world, this is when no one knows he's sick. He doesn't even know he's sick. He says, yeah, my daughter, she wants to be a pediatric oncologist because of what she's seen of the work they do. I mean, this stuff just tears your heart out.
I heard one of the Jimmy Fund women talking yesterday that as early as Saturday, he had planned on Sunday walking from the Jimmy Fund to the finish line at Fenway Park. That's right. How rapidly this thing just came on.
Yeah, and that's Lisa Scherber, who has been there since 1992. I know Bob knows her. Bob was maybe discovered her before any of us. I discovered her a year later when our daughter was in the clinic, and she was single then, Lisa Graceffa. I think she worked at the station, right, Bob? Yeah, and she's become this iconic, the play lady at the Jimmy Fund, and she's real. This is obviously just really torn up, but she can give proper voice to his connection and how legit it is and was, because this is not someone who showed up once in a while with the cameras behind him. This is a guy who was a lifer. He was great at it, and he was always there for them. And Lisa knows that, and the world knows it now.
Plus, he was a great golfer. I mean, people don't realize what a great athlete he was. I mean, in terms of, I remember this, Lynchy and Dan, it was in Fort Myers, across that golf course, across the street from City of Palms Park, Park, and they had Red Sox had a golf tournament there, and Maya Menino was there, and Mo Vaughn, and they were in the same, and Wakefield got up to the tee on his knees, no lie, on his knees, and hit a drive about 250 yards straight down the middle. I couldn't believe it. And I told him that every time I saw him, I reminded him of that. It was just the most amazing thing I've ever seen. But to him, it was nothing. He was just such an easygoing and, a much beloved guy that just seemed to do all the right things because he was the right kind of guy.
Absolutely. I just, in his later career at Nesson, they had this cast of guys, Euclid and Millar and, Lenny DiNardo, a lot of nice guy players like that. And he was in that cast. And, I was glad I never got around to ripping him for being too much of a homer, team guy, because, so much of those guys, except for Papelbon, most of them are. And, but he was very loyal. He was loyal to the Sox. He was loyal to the community. And he wasn't going to be a rabble rouser, not in that job, not at all.
What about this? I'm sorry, Lynchy. I was going to ask.
I'm just thinking of things that popped up in the last 24 hours. This movement now to rename, was it Jersey Street, the old Yawkey Way, to name it Wakefield Way. Yeah. I mean, what does this guy deserve from in terms of perpetuity?
Well, they've got a lot of things to do over there, and this week there'll be announcement of services and how that's going to play out for his family and whatnot. I think that I would seriously doubt that they would change the name of that street after what went on with going from Yawkey Way back to Jersey Street and John Henry's attachment to that and all the heat that came with that. I don't think that's going to get touched. That's just my personal opinion on that. I have no knowledge, but you could certainly retire his number, and they have rules about that too. You got to be in the Hall of Fame and all this stuff, and they've bent that for a certain guy. They bent it for Johnny Pesky, who certainly deserved it. And there's about 8 or 9 digits up there now. It used to just be 9418. It was Dorr, Ted, Cronin, and Yaz. And then we've added on, of course, Jackie Robinson's up there in every ballpark. But yeah, I think a lot of fans would be okay seeing 49 up there. We'll see if they go to that limit. I think that would be. I don't think anybody'd argue with that. And they're going to have these 20th anniversaries next year of that 04 team, and this gets to the awkward part of this whole talk we're having here. What are they going to do with Schilling? I mean.
Well, I was going to ask you, that was my question about the Schilling involvement.
Wow. I mean, I don't see how he could ever be welcome here. I don't think we'll ever see him again. I don't think anybody wants to see him. I mean, this was beneath, he showed his colors on this one. You know what? He had 3 days to apologize, and he couldn't do it. He could have said, I meant well, sorry, bleeped up, not capable. And then Tim Wakefield dies, and now what do you do? But, you all saw the Catherine Veritek tweet, which I don't know if we can say it here on your show, but it was, bleep you, Curt Schilling, not your story to tell. And that never goes away for him. And I don't know. That's not a political position. That's humanity. And we've all had crises in our families and our lives. And that was really wrong. And they were very violated by that. And people are really mad at Curt, and that would include all of his teammates.
And let me ask you this, Dan, as a reporter, when that story broke from Schilling, and then the Red Sox put out a statement saying that the Wakefields are asking for privacy at this time. Do you still run with it if it's out there? Do you have to go with it? I mean,
well, once the team put out a statement, we're all obligated to report the statement. So, and it's hard to report the statement in a vacuum, like not explain why that statement was issued. So, but that was decided by Tim Wakefield's family, his agents, by the Red Sox. They knew that would be covered. They put it out so that it would be covered and it would explain how they feel. And it did explain how they feel. And it also explained the truth of what Curt Schilling did, that he was correct in his information, which no one had any way of knowing that until that statement came out. But there was some pushback. Well, why is the Globe, the Herald, and TV stations reporting about this because the Red Sox issued a statement. Right. That's why. So
it's funny. I wondered the same thing, but it didn't seem to bother me as much because I felt somebody had to talk about it because the horse was out of the barn. It was just, it was there. Let me just ask a little more about Schilling. He's always been a mystery to me, mainly because Shonda Schilling has always been, I think, so great. She was the direct opposite of Curt, or maybe I'm missing something here, but I know that she wrote a book on her artistic child, and I just always felt that was a match that I just could not figure out.
Well,
like
we don't know.
Matches I can't figure out.
Yeah,
like a lot of my own I couldn't figure out.
I feel sorry for his wife and children. I just think he's really gone off the rails since he stopped playing. He wasn't like this when he played. I mean, it wasn't this level. I mean, this is menace to society stuff we're seeing the last 10 years. I mean, it's bad. And that wasn't happening when he was pitching here. So I don't know whether he's whatever. But I think for his wife and children, this would be a lot to live with.
sitting down in Tennessee right now. What attracted him to Tennessee?
Well, Mike, if you go back to look at his statements, he basically flipped off all of New England. He said, "I'm going where there's good people. I need to go where there's good people." So that was a message to all of you in your audience that he does not consider us good people. That's what he was saying. And that's just part of the whole, after I asked the people of Pawtucket, why they lost their team because of Kurt Schilling, because of what he did to Rhode Island and with no contrition, the man who hates corporate welfare takes all this state money and runs it dry and bankruptcy and then gets out of Dodge and still manages to be insulted by the locals. The Red Sox paid him $8 million to not pitch in 2008, and he's been flipping them off ever since for doing him wrong.
I forget about that.
$8 million. He never threw a pitch.
I know. I forget about that now.
And he talks about how horrible people they are, and I mean, I'm honored to be on that list as well. So we have a lot of history, but it's just there cannot be an athlete in our region who's ever fallen. I mean, it just doesn't exist. I mean, the guy.
The whole Hall of Fame thing about take my name off the ballot types.
Well, that was one of the, that ended up having a very fitting conclusion, which was he got up to 71% of the writer's ballot. And at that point, still had a year of eligibility left. Everybody who gets to that percent swings in the next year. He was going in the next year. Jim Rice climbed and got to 70%. And I always told Jim, don't say anything. Just let this, you're getting in. And he did. Kurt was getting in the next year. And instead he flips off the entire voting body, says, take me off the ballot. I want to be judged by people I respect. So he was turned over to the Veterans Committee, and they hate him more than we do. He got like 40% from his peers, the Hall of Famers and the guys in Cooperstown. So anyway, that was that was somewhat amusing and fitting to have it end that way for him. I mean, the man, if you had taken away his laptop 5 years ago, he'd be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Well, all this started with. I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
Oh no, it did. If this were 1973 instead of 2023, he'd probably be in because he wouldn't have a voice, right?
Right. No platform.
Yep.
This all started with the passing of Tim Wakefield so suddenly that it was just stunning. And I think all of us are still kind of stunned that it actually happened and can't really believe it. But then again, it kind of goes over to Terry Francona and what he thought of Wakefield and, what that relationship must have been like. Francona, considered by many to be the greatest manager the Red Sox have ever had. I would agree with that. I'll never forget the first day that Francona arrived here, Dan, and they had him up at Fenway Park doing interviews all around. And I can't remember the sports writer's name. It's probably a good thing I don't bring his name up. But he started asking, we were the last ones in line and sitting up there waiting in the 409 Club or whatever it was back then. And he was asking Francona about naming, he was just trying to trip him up about how to pronounce the names of towns around here, Situate, or, go through the names of, Peabody. How do you do the whole, hey, bro, just go ahead, pronounce the names of these towns. Like he was trying to catch Francona. I thought it was really embarrassing. And I just thought Francona, it was Ed Berliner was this guy's name. Remember him, Lynchy?
Yeah, put him in the same category as Zipper Zepper and something.
It was awful. I felt terrible about it. But Francona just took it with grace. And I was always a fan because I remember seeing his father play in Cleveland. I was, grew up in Ohio, and I remember seeing Tito, the real Tito Francona, play first base for the Indians. And it was always kind of a thrill. What's that? What do you got? Yours?
Francona, yeah.
Can you read it?
Wow.
Tito Francona and
no, the original Tito.
Yeah, and that's his signature on there too.
Oh, that's okay. That is really cool.
His glove and his I I took it to spring training the year after Terry got the job, and I said, "Hey, is your dad going to be around?" He says, "Yeah, he's always around. Stays at the Homewood Suites by the bell tower."
Wow.
He says he's out there every day at 5 o'clock to get those free meatballs. I said, "Oh, great! I'll have him sign my glove." And that was my Little League glove. It was Sears and Roebuck, or the S&H green stamps. That's what you got, and played with that. And then I had the real Tito sign it. I was so happy.
So cool. That is really cool.
He was a great guy. So yeah.
Well, I was just a fan. I mean, what can I tell you? I mean, you brought it a step closer. I mean, I'm just a kid in the stands thinking there's Tito Francona, and I get to meet his son. His son's managing the Red Sox. Well, how cool is that? But no, you got his damn autograph.
I know. And it's like, we did not talk about this ahead of time for all your listening audience.
Oh, no. This is right now.
That right here. It's like, life is never like that. There it was.
Damn Groton kids are unbelievable sometimes. It's another thing. Seriously, Lynchy. Okay, we're going to talk about Swampscott and being on the East Coast, but no, this is okay. This is pretty cool. I've got goosebumps now.
Ohio guy.
Yeah, how can I tell you? We don't get,
Plus, when we were kids, if you had a great name, it translated into being a great ball player. Now, that wasn't always the case, but there was always, got Minnie Minoso. Great
Rocky
name.
Colavito.
Oh my God! Come on, don't start now.
Tito Francona.
Harvey Keene.
It just rolls off your tongue. Tito Francona.
Totally.
You're playing down on the playground. Hosey, I'm Tito Francona today.
Yeah. The man hit 363 in 1959.
Yep. The White Sox won. I was just thinking the other day, one of my grandsons.
I'm sorry.
And how old was I when I first remembered? I remember the White Sox, so I would have been 6 in 59. And I clearly remember Mazeroski in 70.
Oh yeah.
So by 7, I really was vested and all in for the rest of my life.
There goes the demographic for your podcast now.
You know what the hell there? You know what? We're in it for the money. We're not in it for the audience.
So Dan, let's this 50 years was spectacular. I mean, you could have written 50 pages, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
And I had so much fun. And then when it got to the end of it, I saw one picture. Then all of a sudden, this is Dan Shaughnessy.
Yeah. Why would we end it there? Come on, I was waiting for 10 more pages.
I was sitting at my desk yesterday.
Come on, believe me. Okay, we're Tuesday. I want to remind everybody it's online right now. If it's before Wednesday, and Wednesday it'll be Wednesday's Globe.
And you know what, Dan? Before we go any further, Lobel texted me last night. He says, and Dan's got a column that's going to drop tomorrow. I almost fell off my chair.
I'll get the lingo. I'll get the lingo now.
I'm getting it. It's the only one I know.
Yeah. So that, I took note. I had scrapbooks. When you were a young writer, you had to keep your clips like you guys would keep your tapes. But so I kept my clips to get the first job. So everything I wrote, I kept. And I was a correspondent while I was at Holy Cross for the Globe because I replaced the guy ahead of me, and it was lucky. So I would send stories of Jerry Nason and Ernie Roberts, these guys, and they'd come out and do our games. I'd get them coffee and run quotes for them, and just what you do when you're a young guy trying to break in. So they allowed this story to run October 4th, 1973 by Dan Shaughnessy, Globe correspondent. I kept that. I was so excited. My name was in the paper. Yeah. And so I have all of my clips from doing high schools and little stuff. And then I knew that date was coming up. So I tried to reach the guy I wrote about. His name was Mark Sheridan. Lynch, you might have played against him. He was class of 74. And I know, he would have played that game when Holy Cross beat Harvard in 71. You weren't there yet, I guess. But
I'm same as you. I was a senior in high school.
I
played Danny Lucy, John Provost.
Right. John Provost was in my class, and Sheridan was a year ahead. But he was 6'5", 200 pounds. He was fast. Wayne Harden talked about him at great length because he caught like 9 balls against Temple. And he got drafted by the Eagles. But anyway, I wrote a feature on him, and it got in the Globe. And then I tried to find him 50 years later. I couldn't find this guy. His teammates, nobody has talked to him. He's gone off the radar. He's in Bowie, Maryland. And so I said, well, I can't write about him. He's not even, I said, he must have known something. 50 years later, he still won't talk to me. It's like, a lot of guys, he was sort of a fortune teller in that sense, but who knew? So I said, well, I can't do that. So I said, well, 50 years, I'll just write about stuff I remember. And that's how it leads in. I remember, and then you go through all these litany. I tried to do one per year, and I had all my crap around me. I keep a lot of little diaries and notes and journals, and it's like when we're talking here, old guys who remind each other of things. You start telling. Bob's talking about looking for the sport coat, down in Hernando, Florida. That was a thrill ride. But so yeah, that's what we do. And I got going, and I started looking at the word count, and I'm like, geez, I'm not even in the 21st century yet. And
you stopped early.
This thing's already too long. And so I just had to reconfigure it and say, I'd go back to the 20th century memories and stop when I have dinner with Bill Belichick in Watertown when he first gets the job in 2000. And we know what happened after that. The next 23 years, there was a lot of good things. It just got too long. And we have the commenters who generally come at me with a pickaxe on those things, and you just get killed by the commenters. But a guy wrote a thing. He said, this could have gone another trillion words, and I'd still keep reading it. And I was really hard. I don't know who that guy is, but I was really heartened to read that because I could have kept going. But I said,
we're talking to two more guys just feel exactly the same way because I felt that way this morning. I mean,
there's nothing else to do all day long, so I could have read it. I could have read it all day. When I read this about the eating it in Watertown, Bears Nigerian is Armenian, and it's a big Armenian population. So was Bears responsible for picking the restaurant?
Yes. I had known when Bears, who I love that guy. He's a Wellesley guy, and but Bears went to BU, and I knew him when he was young. I used to do stories for ESPN magazine on Parcells when he was coaching the Jets, and Bears was a young PR guy with the Jets, and of course the D coordinator was Bill Belichick, and Bears saw no ascension with the Jets because the main PR guy was never leaving. I think it was Frank Power. He still had the ring from the name of the team in '69. This guy was never leaving, so Bears attached himself to the D coordinator. And when I'd go up there, he'd chat me up because he was a BU kid, and I got to know him. And then when Bill got the job, he brought Bears with him. And they were, at that point, soliciting media to try to have nice things written about Bill in the first year in 2000. And I was on that list, and Bears knew me. So the three of us had dinner in Watertown at Stellina, which is just closed a couple of years ago. But it was very intimate, and the three of us, and it was nice. And I'm thinking, boy, those days are long gone.
Yeah. At what point did Bill stop soliciting the media?
I'd say the next week, probably after that dinner. I think he was doing it against Bears' will, but you remember they went 5-11 that first year, so there wasn't. He still needed a little help, but maybe he got a little more forgiveness because of that free meal at Stellina. I don't know, but 1 year later they won the Super Bowl, and then he could behave the way he likes to behave with us, which we understand.
True.
Let me ask you, speaking of the Belichick and behaving, this is going to be a long year. I'm looking down their schedule, and they might win 2 more games.
Wow. Well, you giving them the Saints?
No.
Okay.
I'm giving them the Giants and the Broncos.
Okay. Yeah, I know it's rigorous, and 2 with Buffalo still. That doesn't sound good. Now with Judon hurt, Gonzalez hurt, geez. It's making me long for the days of Matt Patricia at this point.
I was just going to say the happiest guy in the universe is Matt Patricia.
I don't know. I've always been a Bill guy. I do believe in that sport. The coach is so important, and that all that greatness really, it's major. And I hate to see what's happening to his reputation with this. It's just tough sledding because the narrative now is going to be it was all Tom, and that's not
well,
fair.
Dan, he said that I'll make the argument for the other side. Yeah. Every season he's had without Tom has been a losing season.
Yeah,
that's the argument for the other side.
It's just
I don't know if I agree with it or not. I'm really caught in between.
Lynchy, you're a football guy. You played at a high level, and I just believe that in that sport, the coach is the difference, and that a system. That's why the same high schools win every year, and that I know that Tom was Tom, but I give Bill a bigger piece of the pie than Tom. I just do, but that's never gonna wash now because Tom went and won with Tampa right away.
My argument against that, Dan, when I'd say in high school and college, you're absolutely correct. It is the coaches that make the difference.
Oh.
But even now in colleges with the portal and the NIL and just all the other stuff that's going on, right? In college, it kind of makes it more like the pros, and so the coaches have less of an effect. That's all I'm going to say. I think you're absolutely right in high school and college.
I want Mike Lynch to tell me the Patriots, 14 AFC championship games, 9 Super Bowls, 6 Super Bowl wins. Who gets a bigger part of the credit, Belichick or Brady?
I want to hear this answer too.
Tom Brady.
Okay, there you go.
Doesn't mean you're wrong, Dan. I like your argument. I really like your argument.
If you're saying
it's an argument I wish I could make, but I can't.
Well, you look what he did for the Tampa team. He instantly turned them into a winner.
Instantly, yeah.
And instantly. And they probably should have gone to the Super Bowl the next year if the defensive back didn't get beat by the guy in the Rams. They may have gone to another second straight Super Bowl down in Tampa. Let me ask you this, Dan. Now, we're all looking at the Jets quarterback and saying he shouldn't even be in the National Football League anymore after the Patriots game. Now he comes out the other night, and he has a pretty solid game.
Yes.
He looks pretty good. Now, let me ask you this. Who would you, if you could have either him or Mac Jones as your quarterback, would you swap quarterbacks if you were the Patriots?
Oh, boy, that's a tough one, Lynchy. You could do a whole couple hours on that. I mean, I know Joe Namath backpedaled on Zach Wilson. I'm not going to go that far. I'm still going to say Mac Jones, but you're the football guy. If you're telling me you'd take Zach Wilson over Mac Jones right now?
I just see fear in his eyes, Mac Jones.
Yeah.
He threw 2 balls. He should have had another one picked off.
Oh, he threw one right to the guy after the second one. Right to him.
You can't roll to the right and throw across your body across the field, especially against this game. If you ask anybody who comes from college to the NFL, what's the biggest difference? They say speed. Speed is the biggest difference. I don't think that's any secret. And we saw it the other day. We saw it.
Okay. Yeah. Mike has spoken. I believe him. That's good. That's strong.
I love Bill Belichick. Trust. I did the show with him.
That must have been fun.
Treated me well.
What was it like doing a show with Belichick? Was it like doing a show with Patino?
Well, it was interesting. He never told me not to do anything. Spygate. He says, "Are you going to ask me about the what's going on down with the Jets?" I said, "Absolutely." He says, "All right. Well, I really don't have any answers." I said, "I'm going to ask you 2 or 3 questions about it, and I don't know what questions I'm going to ask you, but when we get to that point in the show." And he just said, "Yeah, I'm not talking about that. Yeah, I'm not talking about that. I'm looking forward to the Bengals or whatever." So I never had any problem with him. I do, and I'm sure you all feel the same way. Don't you cringe at the 5th quarter?
Oh my God!
You were there, Danny. I saw the back of your head the other night.
Yeah, it's must-see TV, that 5th quarter thing. I mean, but it's so awkward. It's just a big bowl of awkward for everybody. And it's you guys have had Alice Cook on this thing, right? On your
a couple times.
So you got to ask her. That year they were 5-11 out of the gate. You guys had an arrangement where he had to talk to you, like in the morning on game day or something. There was a one-on-one with Bill that Channel 4 had at that time, and we were in Cleveland one time. It was the typical, what do you think, a gray day in Cleveland? What are the odds? It was this horrible gray day in Cleveland, and he was sick. He was gray, and they're standing outside the bus going to the stadium, and poor Alice and Bill, he was sick and gray, and they had lost all these games, and it was one of the worst interviews. No one could get anything. I mean, it was particularly bad on this day. Ask her about that one. I mean, it's like you all did it over the years. We all have done it. But, boy, try a gray day in Cleveland when he's sick and the team's like 1-6 or whatever it was. It was nasty.
I promise that'll be good. I'll ask her. I definitely
will. Everyone, you can get away with all the grumpiness when you win. I mean, you're the king, you make the rules. And so many people now are just going to see him as an angry old man if this continues like this. And I just hate to see him. I don't know if there's anybody, Beige or anybody that can say, "All right, Bill, look, you just make the best of it. Do it 3 minutes. Just say, yep, nope. And then don't give everybody the death stare, because you can't get away with it now.
No.
When the team is tumbling down the chute, you can't get away with it. You can't get any laughs out of it. You can't get any sympathy out of it. And somebody's got to see if they can just get to them.
Dan, I know we're talking about Belichick. We can come back to this in the Patriots, and it sure doesn't look good for the rest of the year. Mike doesn't think they'll win. How many more games, Mike?
I get 2.
2 more games. That's fair. I don't know. I think the Broncos and who else was the other team?
Hey, Dan, before we go any further, the picture right here, Larry Bird. What trophy is he holding? It looks like a CYO trophy, doesn't it?
Yeah. So when I was doing the beat, the Boston Globe had a nice annual award. It was the Jack Barry Award. And Jack Barry covered the original Celtic team in 1946 for the Globe. Jack Barry invented the word turnover in basketball. It was, because it was a new sport at the professional level in Boston. And, Red didn't get here till 1950. But so anyway, there was a Jack Barry Award. It was very nice. And he was a lovely man, wonderful guy. And I think he died in 1975. But so every year, Red would designate, the award would go to the player who was the most cooperative with the media, whatever. And my first year in the beat was 82-83. And Max didn't talk the whole year because he was mad about reporting on a paternity suit back home in Carolina. And Max shut it down for the whole year. And I was unaware of what we were missing because he's so great. This guy doesn't talk. Okay, we respect that. And at the end of the year, we said, Red, who do we give the Jack Barry Award to this year? He said, Cedric Maxwell. I'm like, come on. That's what he would do, just to break chops. So we had to present. I think Ryan refused to participate. And then the second year, I'm giving him, it's the last day of the regular season in 84. First year he was MVP. And I'm presenting him with the Jack Barry Award for being good with the media that year. And, of course, it's right before the greatest playoff spring of all, the Celtic Laker 84. And, it shows you how big he is because I'm not a small person. And, he's like eating candy off my head there. And he was teasing me about something, but we were getting along good in those days. That was that is, I can tell you, I think it's like April 15th, 1984, something like that.
Yeah, Scoop. That's what his name. That's what he called you, Scoop.
That's it, right there.
I got to pay for your show, Mike. I got to pay for your high salary, Mike. So hang on a second.
Here we go.
Dan, I got a question to ask you before this is important. Right after this, Mike's got a good question to ask you. Campers, are you ready to see what's new for 2024? I know you are. Cold Springs RV has next year's models, and they are arriving daily. So go check out the latest in pop-ups and travel trailers and fifth wheelers and motorhomes. Tell them Bob Lobel, Mike Lynch, and everybody else sent you. Cold Springs RV. The doors are always open, and you can freely browse around. If you want to see the latest in camping, get to Cold Springs RV in Ware, New Hampshire, your destination for all things camping. To learn more online, coldspringsrv.com, coldspringsrv.com. That's the place to go, the place to find it. And the question for Dan Shaughnessy from Mike Lynch is.
All right, Dan, I think you've had this before. You've been on the show. Cold Springs RV is in the process of building a Lobie cruiser, which is very much like the Madden cruiser. And we're going to travel around the country. But we're going to give our guest the RV, and you can take one person with you to ride cross country that you can have a conversation with. The person can be alive, the person can be passed on. Doesn't need to be a sports person. It can be anybody you're choosing.
Well, they'd be alive, when you were driving. They wouldn't be sitting there dead.
Right. You can't pick Lobel or Lynch. So who would you pick?
So, wait, I need to know the rules here. I'm picking anyone in the history of the world?
Yeah. Apparently, yeah. Within somebody we'd call it all recognized. You don't.
No, but I mean, I think, I'd probably.
Napoleon or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say probably John F. Kennedy. Yeah. I'd take the trip with John F. Kennedy.
Well, that's not a bad.
I want to hear it.
Can I ask you, can I even further the question and say, okay, let's pick somebody more contemporary?
What contemporary? Who's living?
Well,
I think that
Crosby, Stills, or Nash, one of those guys.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, okay.
Stills can't hear. You'd be yelling the whole time.
Okay, that's all. That's good to know.
So I think it's going to sound funny, but I mean, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, honest to God, Bill Belichick, I think you'd get a lot that you'd be forced to talk, and I think there's a lot there. So those are Theo Epstein, just guys you'd really learn all the backstories would be really good.
I like that.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, good.
I like that a lot. Beautiful. I don't know if he'd make it to the Mississippi River with Belichick before you'd be chewing on your arm or something.
I think there's a lot there.
Thrown out of the car.
Ernie Adams.
So many books have been written, but yet to have been written is a defining book on Bill Belichick, and I haven't seen it in any place in print yet.
Well, Connors was the closest, but Bill didn't help him out.
No,
so that's a setback. And the Wickersham book on Better to Be Feared covers the whole thing as close as anyone has come, in my view, as opposed to Dynasty, the Benedict book, which is a puff piece for Bob Kraft, to the point where it was given out to season ticket holders. So, that's one to avoid.
Absolutely. Russ Francis, again, another what a week it has been. But this is a guy, as Howard called him, my all-world tight end. In so many ways, not just on the football field.
Yeah, I mean, you guys lived it. I mean, how good he was. He was, in his time, considered the greatest tight end in the history of the sport for periods of time. Casper came along after that, and obviously we fast forward all the way up to Gronk and Kelsey and what's going on now. But, I mean, how close Leslie Bissard sent me an email yesterday. She's in the Hall of Fame. And she said, so sad about Russ Francis. The media-player relationship was so different. We all traveled with them in the 70s, like you did with the Celtics. She said, one time in the fall, Russ took me up in his glider to see the foliage, like something from out of Africa. Very unique guy, loved life. So, you got this young reporter who's riding in a glider over the foliage, and then he dies in a plane crash. It's not even established whether he was flying that plane or not. There's two guys up front. One of them's, and he bought, he buy the airport or something? I mean, so, yeah, I mean, and he always had all those interests. I didn't know the guy. Just had, he's a Renaissance man, had all these interests. And, but for those who were covering, like you talked to, Upton knows a lot. And obviously, Borges, Willie, when he was alive, just they were friend. He was, he was a big deal. Russ Francis, a huge deal.
Danny, my agent, and we had the same agent. Russ Francis and I both had the same agent. And my agent, was really good friend, and we played golf a lot together. Would always tell me about how Russ lived in Hawaii at the time.
Yeah.
And he flew Ken, the agent, around Hawaii in his plane. He would take Ken up in the plane around Hawaii. And I haven't even talked to Ken yet about Francis's death, but it's just kind of amazing that, like, you had the Leslie Visser story, and I have another guy that just flew with Francis when he was in Hawaii. So this is what he did all the time. I just don't know, who, right. You don't know who was flying that day. They determined who was in what seat, but they don't know who was actually flying the plane. Yeah. But the guy he was with was an extremely talented and had a great deal of history in aircraft and with the service and everything else. So who knows? Just so sad. So it's been a tough week. It has.
I take that back on the Patriots. I think they might win 4 more games. I think they'll beat in Las Vegas, because I think Belichick just owns.
What about Jets at home, Lynchy?
No. I think the Jets, and I didn't buy this whole thing about the Jets defense was so good and they're blah 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 blah. But they showed me something against Kansas City the other night.
Yeah, that was a game.
By the way, will anything be coming on Travis Kelce and Swifties?
I did one last week, and that's my quota. I mean, that's I can't go back there.
Yes,
So,
I have. Right.
yeah, if
You've
she
never heard noise like that. You've never heard a crowd like that.
right,
Yes,
if she goes to Minnesota next week, then we'll know it's real. I think the New York thing was too easy, but it's an
Did
interesting.
she come here with she come here when Kansas City plays here, and will she sit next to Kraft? She'll sit next to Kraft for the obligatory TV shot.
I don't know if she'd put up. I don't think she could put up with being beneath him when he's in the high chair. That'd probably be too demeaning.
That was a great line of all time. Why is it that you never see the owners of any other team? You see Robert Kraft and Jonathan, but like you never see, Woody Johnson.
Well, he's cozied up. I mean, it used to be Les Moonves would be in the box with him,
Yeah.
and then they both had their little dust ups. But yeah, I mean, I think you guys are TV guys. I think they put special lights in that box so that they're more visible. I think there's Klieg lights, whatever you have in there. It's
of course, right. That's true. That's a good point.
very important to him.
Oh,
I'm looking at your Holy Cross shirt, and you proudly wear it, and
Yes.
rightly so. I had a guy I went to high school with who was about 3 years ahead of us, named Bill Adams. He was drafted by the Miami Dolphins and traded to the Buffalo Bills, and played 6 years with OJ. So OJ said to him one day, he said, "Where'd you say you went to college again, Bill?" And he said, "I went to the College of the Holy Cross." OJ said, "I never heard of it." He says, "You're kidding me." "No, I never heard of it." So the Bills, obviously play one game a year in New England, and they watched. In those days, the biggest color TV was in a common room, so the whole team was in there, and Holy Cross was on, playing Harvard or UMass or somebody on the game of the week, and OJ tapped him on the shoulder and says, "Is this the team you played for right here?" And Billy says, "Yeah." He says, "I would gain 500 yards a game minimum if I played for this team right here."
That's he's right about that.
Dan and Nicole, you met OJ and Nicole.
Yes, a New Year's Eve party. It was a very small party. It was it was a bar nightclub that was closed for the night for this private party, and I was there for the Rose Bowl, and I had friends who were friends and connected folks, and yeah, I mean, they weren't married yet, and she was very young and very, very pretty, and you remembered her. And then when years later, it was like 12 years later, OJ's wife was killed. When I saw the pictures, I said, "Well, that's the one. That was her."
Wow. What were you doing covering the Rose Bowl?
In those days, the Celtics invariably had a West Coast trip around the holidays, and I'd be out there. So they would just say, while you're out there, and oh my God, they'd be playing, you'd do the Rose Bowl, and then Celtics be in San Diego, and it could be a number of things. We were very aggressive in covering a lot of things then. The Globe covered all 4 bowls. So whichever writer was located the closest to those proximities would then go. And, if the Bruins were playing the Dallas or something, that guy would do the Cotton Bowl, because that's how we did it. So I was closest. That happened numerous years where I got quote unquote stuck at the Rose Bowl. It was a nice thing to do. I did Orange Bowl, Cotton Bowl, did them all. Yeah.
I was going to ask you more also about Francona, but before I do, I wanted to ask you do the Red Sox really know what they're doing? At least now that Alex Cora, can he both be the general manager and the manager at the same time? This seems like an untenable situation.
It's very awkward that that doesn't present as a good situation. It's not an enticing job. I mean, they've fired the last 3 guys before they finished their 4th season, a couple of them on the heels of winning world championships. And now you've established that your manager had just won the power struggle. He's talking about next year's opening day starter. They haven't done anything with the coaches. I mean, and they've got this posse of vice presidents and general managers all in place. I mean, who wants to come into this? And then you got owners who are trigger happy and need someone to blame all the time. That's a really poor way to get the thing going. it presents like they do not know what they're doing. And Alex might as well be the owner of the team. He's clearly they love him, and nothing touches him, and he's got tremendous power. I mean, the Mets, I would rather be a fan of the Mets, and I know they had a bad year too, but the owner spends money, doesn't care about money, and he hired a guy that's a young geek guy and said, "This is yours." And that guy, David Stearns, he fired Buck Showalter the last day of the season. He's bringing in all of his own people. He's going to do it his way, which ultimately that's the way the game is trending now. It's very unusual to have this sort of manager power from a guy who, they just finished last 2 years in a row.
What does that tell you? They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, it's really a shaky time over there, and no accountability from ownership. They should be at that press conference yesterday.
Right.
They no availability. They're just hiding. Yeah. And poor Sam's up there. We love Sam, but he's not a baseball guy. He's taking all the bullets, and then seriously, you're raising ticket prices. I mean, maybe not the year to do that. This might have been a time to say, yeah, we'll just leave it alone this year. That's people they feel insulted, I think.
The optics weren't good either, because there was a story this week from the Fenway Sports Group, one of the other acquisitions. And that the optics on that just are not good in any sense at all. It's
nonstop. They are the Red Sox are a part of a portfolio. There's no other way to look at it, and it just feels like they've done their winning and they're resting on that, and now they're behaving like a middle market team, which they are not, and that's.
So it begs the question: are these really fans of the Red Sox, or are they fans of Fenway Park?
Well, the ballpark is the star, and they know they can get out of towners to come in and the tours, and again we saw Dodger fans, Met fans, Brave fans all take it over this year, and that's where we're headed. I mean, Rob Refsnyder is a lovely guy, I'm sure, but you're just not going to sell a lot of merch on Refsnyder, and I looked at in today's Globe, they got, check it out. It's a nice piece by Julian McWilliams. It's on the roster, and he breaks down the whole thing here. And under contract, options, free agents, 3 years out of service time, which means club control, 25 guys, club control. That's what they love. When Heim made the deal for Urias, the one deal at the deadline, he said, we've got club control for 2 years. They love club control. They want 25 guys on 1 year contracts, total turnover every year. And you're not going to sell a lot of merch with that. You don't have stars. And these are your Boston Red Sox. That Tampa thing was real, except for the winning part.
Yeah.
No, these are not your Boston Red Sox. The baseball park is your Boston. Your Boston icon. It's your Citgo sign. It's your
star.
It's your Faneuil Hall. It's your.
I mean, they're counting on people being happy just to sing the song in the eighth inning. It's really what happened. Oof.
Is it as bad as when we were kids and before 1967? Difference was for me is they had ball players. They had Carl Yastrzemski, Tony Conigliaro, other recognizable names. There isn't a person in that lineup that I want to go across the street and buy my grandson a jersey for.
It's really they just don't understand that. And I agree with everything you just said, Mike. And because we were kids, there were Dick Raditz. There were guys you wanted to see. Bill Monbequette would win 20 games. They'd finish eighth, but yeah, of course. And then you're bringing up young stars, Reggie Smith and Mike Andrews, and it just felt a lot better. I know we sort of romanticized the past. They were bad every year, but they just finished last 3 times in 4 years, 6 times in 12 years, and it's not okay. And they charge the highest prices in baseball, and the dearth of stars, and just that club control thing I just talked about.
This is what happens, Dan, when the dog catches the car.
Yeah. It's tough.
Let me read my last spot here.
Yes, please, Mike.
But, if you're looking about to get a new car, go where Lobel and Lynch go, and Dan goes too. Go see our friend George Gray at George Gray's Lexington Toyota. We've been customers for years because we know that George Gray will treat you right.
Dan wrote about Red's favorite Toyota dealer. I don't know who that was, but we might as well say it was George Gray now.
That's right.
Family-owned and operated dealership that we trust and you can trust as well. Go see the great George Gray at Lexington Toyota. He can talk about everything that we've been talking about for the past 55 minutes. He's a big sports fan, but more importantly, he'll be with you and he'll be your car dealer and friend for life.
Danny,
What did we not cover? Oh, you got something, Bob?
I just want to ask Danny what the deal is with Groton.
Well,
Well, no, seriously, it's like the Yalta. You guys have a meeting every month called Yalta. Will you explain that? That's fascinating.
It's every week. It's every week.
Okay, sorry.
And, just that the world evolves around Groton, Massachusetts, and it's a very small town. We all have small towns in our past, and very dear to me. I was very fortunate to grow up there. Had 4,000 people growing up. And one of them was Peter Gammons. One of them was me, and we love that about it. And I've have lifelong friends from there, and subsequently gatherings. Like Bob Ryan comes to our Wednesday thing because he went to Lawrenceville Prep, and there was a teacher who taught at both Lawrenceville and Groton, and the same teacher taught Peter Gammons and Bob Ryan in those two prep schools. So stuff like that.
What about Richard Johnson of the Sports Museum?
Richard Johnson went to Lawrence Academy, which is in Groton. A.J. Dillon went to Lawrence Academy, which is in Groton. We could go on forever, and that's the Yalta Summits of 2020 through 23. Still going. 149 weeks in a row, fellas. Always outdoors.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. Do you have a lot of steps on your front stairs?
Not a lot.
Oh, good. All right. Well,
we can both make it, Mike.
Well, the two cripples can make it up 3 or 4 stairs and get on there. We may only make one visit, but we're going to make a visit.
You guys are welcome. Just reach out to me. You know where to find me, and you're always welcome.
Why is Francona leaving baseball?
Well, it's his health. I mean, I talked to him last week, and a lot of us who know him are concerned about it because that clubhouse life is the life, and I just worry in the absence of that. But he said, I got this figured out. He's had over 40 surgeries. He's going to have new shoulder put in, and got a couple of hernias, so he's facing more. One of his feet almost had to be amputated. He's got very poor circulation issues. And, his habits aren't good, the hours and the diet and all that stuff, all the bad stuff. So it must be bad, and I worry about him. But he told me when I was quitting playing, everybody said, you won't know what to do. And I got past it. He says, I'm going to get past this too. And hopefully he'll take care of himself and get himself right. But boy, he's a loved guy, and I think he'll be wished into the Hall of Fame within 5 years. So, and he deserves it.
Absolutely. Best book you ever wrote, Dan? The one with him.
That book was a very great experience. He got fired. I have a very good agent who said, he had repped the Joe Torre, Tom Verducci book, the Yankee years when Torre got fired, and it sold 1 million books. He's Mitch Albom's agent. So anyway, he said, you should reach out to Francona. I was like, yeah, well, he hates me. So, well, just send him an email. So I sent him an email. I said, Tito, sorry you got fired. You want to do a book? Comes back, no, and not with you. But then he, when all that Holler stuff came out about the Percocet abuse and the failed marriage, and when the Sox brass did him dirty to kick him on the way out, he got more angry and more interested in telling his story. And I became more interesting to him because he knew I would be a good way for him to get it out there and maybe scare him a little bit. And it was just we did it in like 8 months, and New York Times bestseller list, #2. He was always mad at Judge Sotomayor. She was #1, and he thought that was a fix, so friggin' judge. But so it was. And I know Lucchino and Tom, they tried to say the book was fiction. I said, well, I don't know. We're #2 of the New York Times nonfiction list, so I'm going to stick with that.
Did we ever find out who the source was for the Holler material?
No, we never will. You are no one. Like 4 people in the world know that, and no one's going to find out. When John bought the Globe, I was concerned about the IT, the laptop and the desktop and the phones and all my stuff. And so I had IT come down and go into the deep drive on the Google devices and just erase all that stuff, because I thought it was like the first scene of Argo when they're breaking the hard drives and shredding documents and they're coming into the embassy. That was me when John bought the paper. Had to get rid of that stuff. So no one's ever going to know those sources. You can guess, but we won't tell you.
No, that spring training was, I mean, it was uncomfortable for you, and you had to ask all the questions, but it was a comedy show. Next question.
Yeah.
Lupino just
we were
right at you.
We were indoors that year because it was raining out. Yeah. There's some vicious pictures of that where he's I'm getting the Sicilian daggers from Larry the whole time. So yeah, it wasn't good.
What's the relationship between you and the owner of the Globe? And I know every time you mention his name, you also put in parentheses, also owner of the Boston Globe.
Right. We need to make that clear, and so we do. But here's what I'll say: there is no relationship. We haven't talked since 2009. The first 7 years or so were pretty good. I'd go to his house for dinner. We did some stuff together and sit in his box, and I enjoyed it. And that went away, and now he owns the paper. I mean, I give him a lot of credit for that. I'm still here. I'll check my phone when this segment's over and see if that's still the case. But it can't be any fun owning the Globe and picking it up and reading about me writing about that team when things are going the way they're going. But I think that
isn't he a businessman first and realizes that you're one of the most iconic parts and well-read parts of his newspaper?
Well, that's true, but we all know that we're all expendable, and you could get rid of me and take a little pushback.
Lynch, I thought we'd be around forever.
That's what I'm saying. He could easily trigger me and have a couple days of pushback, and then life goes on for everybody. So I give him credit, for that. So I think that speaks highly.
I do too. I think he's really smart. I mean, I can't believe that. Well, hopefully he's smart enough to know the heat he'd take if he did that. But no.
I think it's a strong statement that's allowed. I really do.
Good. I'm glad you feel that way, but I can't believe you haven't talked since 2009.
That's pretty much it. No, yeah, there was a fork in the road there, and we went, like that. Yeah.
And you took it, as Yogi would say.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Right. Good one.
Well, Dan, this was great as always. Thank you so much for your insight and sharing some of these stories. And, it's great. We're not really three old fogies. I turned 70 last week, Dan, by the way.
There you go.
25th, so I'm now.
Welcome to the club. And call me anytime. You guys want to come on Wednesday, just reach out to me and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Wednesday at 2.
Let me just reiterate that Dan dropped his column on the internet today. It'll be in Wednesday's Globe. I think you'll love it. And it's only the first of 2 installments. I'll put it that way. Hopefully. Maybe first of 4. Who knows? Yeah. Dan, thank you very much. Great job.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks. Still next week. Thanks, Dan.
Take care, guys. Enjoy it. Bye-bye.
Bye.